Hi, welcome. Previously on this channel, I've had my records behind me, or some of my records. That's because I've been talking about records, talking about music. Today, I've turned it all around because I'm going to be talking about the equipment used to listen to the records. In particular, about home loan evaluation of equipment for a potential future purchase. Now, I'm not saying I'm the ultimate expert in this stuff, but I've done it enough times and I think I have enough miles on the meter to be able to draw some conclusions on best practices here. I've also made some mistakes, even in this ongoing home loan evaluation that I'm doing right now. I've made mistakes, and I'll share those with you as well, so that you can hopefully learn from those rather than having to repeat them for yourself. So you've been lusting for some upgrade to your hi-fi system. And even if you have a clear idea of what component it is you want to replace, there's still so much to choose from. So many brands, so many price tiers, so many products within each price tier. You can, of course, go on manufacturers' websites and read the sales pitch on there. Or you can go to forums and see what other people say, but how do you trust any of that information? The brand themselves are obviously not going to criticize their own product. And on forums, you don't know whether someone is, a retailer or a distributor, a manufacturer, a friend of either of those, or just a consumer that has bought the product and have this sort of confirmation bias and trying to tell everyone that they've made the best choice available. Next step up, a little less abstract, is a professional reviewer. Because professional reviewers hear a lot of gear, more than most consumers will ever hear. And that has value. If they're able to express that and contextualize that in a good way, which good reviewers do, then that is a good source of information. But it's still abstract. It's still not a product that you have heard at all. So to hear it at all, you might go to an audio show. But then, even if the room sounds amazing, how do you know what component in that system made it sound amazing? Maybe it was the room itself, maybe it was the choice of music, maybe it was the cabling, maybe it was any component other than the one you're lusting for. So you can't know. Well, the only thing you will know if a room sounds amazing at a show and it has the component in it that you're lusting for, you will know that, okay, it has the potential to sound good, but you don't know whether it will in your system with your music in your room. A little bit better is to go to a retailer and do an in-store demo. They might be able to put together a system that at best might share some components of what you have at home already, or at least be similar in characteristics and price range so that you can get a slightly better idea of what this component can do. But it's still abstract, still not your system, and it's still maybe an hour or two at best. So next step up, and obviously as you understand from the topic and title of this video, is a home loan for evaluation. And I'm deliberately saying evaluation and not review, because I think most of us, if like me, you've read hi-fi reviews for a couple of decades or more, that has sort of become ingrained in how you think about evaluation of a product. The verbiage and the sort of approach of hi-fi reviews become how you think about product evaluation. And it is right for a reviewer to use a certain type of language, a certain type of methodology, because they're trying to contextualize the value proposition of a product in the overall pantheon of hi-fi components. But that's not what you're doing. You are trying to figure out whether this specific component is right for you in your system, in your room, with your music and your preferences. So I think it's useful to try to shed the sort of review mentality. You're not here to tell everyone else about this product. You're here only to determine what it does for you. So when committing to a home loan of a component, what should you think about? I think the first thing to be aware of is there's an inherent bias in even doing the home loan. You've done this research, you've committed to loaning this piece of equipment, you've put it in your system. There's a bias there to feel like you're halfway to a purchase already, and I would recommend you try to fight against that. Once it's in your rack, it's going to be hard to let it go, but you should be willing and prepared to let it go throughout the evaluation, because otherwise that's going to taint your judgment. Next, make sure your research is thorough. Is this one component really the best candidate for you in terms of features, in terms of performance, in terms of price? Could you do better for less? Should you step up to a different tier and spend a little more and get a different sort of value out of it? And is this component that you have your sights set on just there because it happens to be available from a retailer near you or from the retailer you usually deal with? Should you put in the extra effort to try to get a hold of something that isn't normally distributed in your region or whatever? Because there might be products out there that are tougher to get a hold of but are a better fit for you. If you're going to commit to a home loan, if you're going to spend big money, make sure it's on the right thing. And make sure your system is ready. Is it set up properly? Have you tuned your speaker positioning? Is your room really in order? Do you have the best sort of setup to do this evaluation? Do you have the prerequisite cables and rack space? If it's a component that relies on an app for its interface, have you familiarized yourself with that app beforehand and so on? You don't want to go into this evaluation beginning with, calibrating your system or trying to clear up rack space or realizing you're missing some cable and now you need to go out and buy that or borrow that and wasting precious time, because a home loan is usually a pretty short amount of time. It's like a week or two in most cases. And that might sound like a lot, but it truly isn't. And of course, make sure that you are ready. Have you cleared your schedule, or do you have a bunch of work and family obligations lined up? Can you sit and listen for long periods of time during this evaluation period? If you can't, then maybe hold off until you're able to clear your schedule accordingly. Last but not least, make sure you have some sort of plan or criteria. What do you seek to get out of this component? What do you need it to do for you? And that can be sonically, and that could be in terms of the interface. Like, there could be all sorts of things that you need to be wary of for the component to be right for you long term. Have a think about that beforehand and sort of mentally have some checkboxes that you want to evaluate the product against. And inversely, there might be things that disqualify it. What would those be? Do you have an idea of those beforehand? Let's say you've done all that, you've decided on a component, you've agreed with the retailer, you brought it home. Do change only one thing at a time in your system. If you change two and you hear a great deal of difference, for better or for worse, how do you know which one contributed to that difference? Because both the Graham Audio MU2 and the Playback Designs MPD6 have analog volume controls, that meant I don't really need an integrated amplifier. But that's what I have, so that's another analog volume control. What if I just get a power amplifier instead? Maybe that's a better setup if I buy either of these. So I borrowed home a Mytek Empire GaNFET stereo power amplifier. Now that one was brand new, so I needed to do the burn-in, if you believe in that or not. I tend to do, actually. I'm not trying to ridicule that too much. I do tend to think and believe and have experienced that there is a difference over time. But I didn't have that kind of time to let it run. It wasn't sounding right from the beginning, and that was just changing too many parameters. Either of these added to my system plus a new amplifier, then I'm changing multiple things at a time. So then how do I know what contributed the most to the sound? So I bit off more than I could chew in that regard. And so that's a lesson learned for me. I'm not going to try to change that many things at once next time around. Make sure you read the manuals of the products. You might think that it's super straightforward and you're just going to hit play and enjoy some music. But you'd be surprised at how often there's some tiny little tweak or setting that has a significant impact on performance of a product. So do make sure you do, like, it takes a few minutes. Just go through that process of read it beforehand, and you'll make sure that you're not wasting precious hours listening to a suboptimal setup. So finally, it's time to listen. But you will almost inevitably listen for changes. Like, you plug the new thing in and you go, all right, let's see what this thing can do. And you're going to be sort of mentally tuned to try to pick out what's different relative to the component you had before. And I would argue that is the wrong way to think about this, and it's a wrong way to listen. So why do I think that? Well, for the presumably many years you'll have this component in your system, that is not how you will listen to music. If you're anything like me, you are into music and you're willing to spend big money on equipment to optimize the emotional impact that music can have on you. And emotional impact is not achieved by listening for like attack or treble or this or that. You want to listen with your heart. But when you plug in a new component and you're sitting down and you're trying to hear what it does different from what you had before, you are not listening that way. So something I did this time around that I felt was really beneficial was that for the first maybe half day, I deliberately tried to distract myself. I was on the phone, I was on my laptop, I read a book for a little bit, and that just took the edge off of analytical mode. And like, it's still there. I'm still like super giddy about hearing differences, but it let me sink into the music a little bit more by shifting my focus slightly away from it. It might sound counterintuitive, but I felt that it was a good idea to do that, so I would recommend other people to try it. And in the same vein, don't like fire up your playlist of test tracks, if you have one of those, immediately. Like, save that for later. Start out just playing records you know and love. Just sit in music that you're deeply familiar with and that you have a deep connection to. I think that is the best way to just get some miles on the meter and just get going and get to feel music before you start to analyze individual sonic parameters. As your evaluation period is progressing, you should expect to have different experiences on different days. You might not think about that when you're listening to music in your everyday life, but that is what's happening. You might have a different resting heart rate day to day. You're in a different mood. You're craving different food. You are different day to day. You've slept differently. Your hormonal balance is different. Your whatever immune system is different. Things happen. Don't get too worked up about differences. If you are super moved by music one day and you're like, this is the best thing ever, and the next day you're not finding that same response when you're listening, even if you're listening to the same thing at the same volume, it's not happening on day 2 or whatever. Don't get too worked up about that. Just know that and understand and remember that things are different day to day, and that's okay. And if you are not connecting with something, just move along and play something else. But also, at the same time, remember that if you find yourself skipping between genres and artists the whole time, then maybe this product is not letting you connect with music overall. Or there's certain styles of music where it just doesn't really work, or certain playback volumes where it doesn't become as engaging. You need to turn it up all the time with this thing, but before you could enjoy music at a lower volume or whatever. Like, those things might be factors that impact that enjoyment. Now, maybe you are simply overwhelmed by the sound. It exceeds all of your expectations. You are moved to tears hour by hour, day by day, and you couldn't believe you could get this sound out of your system. Well, okay, then this component's for you. Unless you are super prone to FOMO and now you need to see if you can get that same effect for less, or if there are other products, I would recommend against that. If you have that type of reaction, just buy the thing. Like, it is for you. Like, you could have that thing and stop worrying about what else is out there. That's the easiest outcome you could possibly get from a home evaluation is to be positively overwhelmed and just have expectations shattered in a positive sense. But it is very likely that you'll have some sort of doubt. Again, the shifts day to day, you might be thinking, am I really hearing that much of a difference? You might be thinking, is that difference that I am hearing worth this amount of money? And you might be convinced in the moment that this is for you, but then later at dinner or lying in bed at night, you might be thinking, was it really that good? Because the emotions are strong in the moment, but a memory of an emotion might be vague and diffuse, and you kind of distrust whether it was really that good. And all of this doubt, and it might come in other forms too, I think is important. I think you should listen to that doubt, because what you're doing is contemplating spending a lot of money on something that is supposed to give you pleasure. And if it isn't obvious that this thing is giving you sufficient pleasure, then maybe it's not for you. So the doubt is actually your friend in this. The outcome should be a purchase, an upgrade to your system that you are absolutely, utterly convinced has been worthwhile and that you can't wait to listen to again and again and again. And if that's not where you're getting, you should probably keep looking. You have no obligation to like something just because you have it on loan, or just because it's expensive, or just because some reviewer has raved about it. Your only obligation is to yourself, to your emotions, to your enjoyment. Now, the opposite of doubt is where it gets really dangerous, because that would be telling yourself that it's better than your emotions are saying. It's a sort of bias I talked about initially. Like, you've done all this research, you found this product, you talked to your retailer, you committed to the home loan, you've made space in your rack or whatever, you put it in, and you've cleared your schedule, you've sat down to listen, and it turns into a sort of sunken cost fallacy that surely if you've gone this far, it's going to be worth it, right? Surely this thing is that good. Surely all the things you've heard about it are true, and you're seeking validation for that bias. But that is not necessarily the path to a successful purchase, a successful upgrade. So if you catch yourself thinking that way, if you catch yourself trying to validate these biases, try to take a step back, like push the brakes on that a little bit, because you're not being kind to yourself and your future hi-fi journey by letting those types of thoughts run free. I'm going to need to talk about A/B testing a little bit here. I think A/B testing is very much overrated. Not useless, but overrated. You will find a lot of people on the internet with very strongly held opinions, usually that A/B testing is the only true way to evaluate products. And I think they are wrong. It has value, it has use, but it has a lot of pitfalls. The main one being that A/B testing is by definition listening for sonic differences, for individual parameters. The treble, the mid-range, the bass, the attack, the decay, the soundstage width, the height, depth, whatever. Like, you're listening for individual quantifiable data points. And that is not listening with your heart. And that is why I'm trying to tell you is what you need to do to know whether this product is right for you long term. So if you want to do A/B testing, and I have done A/B testing in my current home loan evaluation, so again, I'm not saying it's completely useless, but if you want to do it, the most important thing of all is level matching. I've been doing with the Grimm Audio MU2 and the Playback Designs MPD6. I used a decibel meter app on my phone. I played a broad spectrum constant signal through my system, pink noise. And I held the phone in the same position for both units, and it read the same decibel value. But it turns out that one of them sounded a little bit more fleshed out, a little bit more body to the sound, a little bit more engaging. and potentially a little bit louder. So I did my homework and I checked whether that was actually correct level matching, and it turns out it wasn't. Turns out that the Playback Designs MPD6 set at -3 dB and the Grim Audio MU2 set at 0 dB was a mismatch. The phone app read the same, but if I bumped up the Grim Audio MU2 to +1 dB, now the phone still said they had the same loudness, but to my ears they were now even. So the right way to do level matching is to measure the voltage at the speaker terminal, but I was a little bit lazy. I used my phone, so do that properly. It turns out that I now wasted several hours of A/B comparison. That was one of my mistakes in this evaluation. I recommend you don't repeat it. Don't start out doing A/B comparison. I touched on that in the beginning of the video. Start out just listening with your heart. Several days of just listening to the new component. Don't bother changing anything else. Just trust that your system is set up the way it should be, because you should have done your homework up front, and just listen to the new component and then change in your old one or another component on loan and give that a long listen. But once you might be getting to the hopping between them, track by track, you have this track with the great bass, and I want to compare that between A and B. Well, what happens a lot of the time is the second time you hear something in quick succession, you already have a sort of sonic memory of the first go around from a couple of minutes ago, and it's easier to hear more details the second time. So if you're doing A/B, especially quick A/B like that, also do BA. And by that I mean alternate which component goes first in a song. Don't always do the same order, because that will taint your results. And then lastly, blind A/B testing. There's no shortage of people that claim that anything other than blind A/B testing is unreliable to the point of being useless, because we're biased based on knowing the price of what we hear, seeing the color of the unit itself can affect us, and whatever. We might have heard more good things about one component than the other, and that taints our judgment. The people who claim this and who dismiss any review, any opinion that isn't acquired through blind A/B testing, those people seem to have a really, really terrible faith in their own ability to listen. I have more faith in my ability to listen than that. I am certain that I can tell what I like the most, what I am touched by the most, even if I know the name of the product, even if I can see what color it is, even if I know what price it has. And maybe you don't trust yourself that way. Then maybe doing it blind is something you should strive for. It's difficult to have it set up in such a way that you can't know which is which, but whatever, that's a different topic. You should, ask yourself whether you trust yourself. I trust myself in listening to things cited, in listening to things I know what they are. But some people won't believe that. Some people will dismiss that no matter what I say, no matter my confidence in my ability, because they can't imagine someone having that ability. And of course, even if you've thought long and hard about this, you've done your research, you've committed to the home loan, you've done this evaluation, you really like this component, you still owe it to yourself to ask yourself whether that money could be better spent towards something else when the objective is pleasure. Maybe it's a different component in your system. Maybe you should get a motorcycle. Maybe you should buy really fancy wine. Maybe you should travel somewhere for the money. Take a step back and try to look at this objectively. It's super hard, basically impossible to do, but it's worth the effort to try, because some of these things are a lot of money. And even if you're not playing in this price range, just a quarter of the price of this would buy you a lot of fun if it's spent elsewhere. And maybe that is right for you. Maybe this isn't what you should be getting. So ask yourself that and be honest, because What you want to achieve is long-term pleasure and happiness. And rushing into a purchase like this is not conducive to achieving that goal. Also, know that nobody else can tell you what you need to hear or experience for the purchase to be worth it for you. There's not some sort of objective criteria for good enough or worth it. That is your judgment. So you have to trust your own emotions. You have to trust your own judgment. But if you have doubt about something, talk to your retailer. They might be able to recommend a different product that you hadn't thought about, or they might be able to tell you about a future upgrade path, or they might be able to just resolve some questions around the product that you might have. If you feel the retailer is pushing a sale on you, well, it's not a good retailer for you. Maybe you shouldn't shop there. That's not always an option you might have. It might be the only one carrying the product you're wanting to buy, but seek opinions elsewhere then, because you should not be pushed into a purchase. So how did my own evaluation go? Well, I'm going to be talking about that in a separate video. For now, this was just about the process itself. I actually need to pack these up right now and get them back to the store. Now, do you agree with what I said? Would you add anything or change anything in this methodology and in my thinking around home evaluation? Please let me know. So with that said, I hope this was helpful for your potential future upgrade journey. Until next time, see ya.